All right. Well, welcome to FCA Football's 15th edition of the Heart of the Coach. My name is Brian McKenzie. I have the privilege to serve with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes as the Director of Football in the Midwest region and beyond. And we're happy to have you guys on the call and happy to have our special guest today, my good friend for over 25 years or so, Dean Hood, who's the head coach at Murray State University. Dean, welcome to the call.
Thanks, buddy. You're aging both of us with those how many years we've known each other deal.
Well, you started coaching in year 4, so I think that shows you right there. Yeah, still under 30.
Yeah.
Well, Dean, I know just from talking to you, you've been spending a lot of time with your family during this time. So what are some of the things that you've been enjoying as a family during this quarantine that you don't normally get to do about this time of year?
Well, first of all, they're not real excited about me. You know, that may pick up now that they're done, but they're like everybody else. They wanted to stay up all night, watch TV, and then sleep until noon, and then get up and do their stuff. And I've been waking them up at 8:30, and they've all had their quiet time and devotional, and then they get busy on their schoolwork, and then they get done with that, they got a list of chores, and then they get done with that, they're all involved in a sport, so they got a sports improvement time and or a workout, and then they got an individual improvement, which that's like something else, of interest, like fly fishing or playing a guitar or whatever. And then we've had family, fun time. And that's always a little crazy. And then by then it's time for a late dinner and start all over again, So it's been, while they're working on their schoolwork, I'm working on, trying to, like a lot of coaches are all over the country, trying to, work with a football team remotely. So we've been busy. The one thing that's good is, when it gets time for, family time, there's not been any, hey, can I go over, little Timmy's house, or can I go over Susie's house, or can Carol come on over here and spend the night? So that's been good because it's just, it's just been us. So that's been, really, really special time. And, I know it's probably a lot more difficult for people with, younger kids, but, for our kids, their ages, 12 to 19. So it's been really, really, enjoyable, and a lot of competition, a lot of, new crazy stuff, sock slides across there, and, riding the top of a box down the stairs, sled riding, and, stupid stuff like that. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Sounds like a lot of my house right now, brother.
Yeah.
Hey, Dean, I know you've been involved as a player and a coach in a lot of great football games. So what's one of the greatest football games you've been a part of, and what was so great about it?
Well, game, I don't know, I'd probably have to say a season. The whole entire 2006 season at Wake Forest was, just something special. And, it was special on a outsider looking in, surface level, because we were picked last in the Atlantic Coast Conference that year preseason and finished first, won the ACC championship game. But, underlying, it was a special season. That's why I couldn't pick a game, because so many games were identical to all the games we won in the fourth quarter, which was actually the fifth quarter that year, because John Abadi, one of our linebackers, had a brother, Luke, that had passed away in the spring, and he dedicated the season to his little brother, and his little brother wore number 5. So John changed his number to 5, and we didn't play in the fourth quarter for Wake Forest. We played in the fifth quarter for Luke. And I couldn't tell you, 5, maybe 6 games we won in the fourth quarter, like literally on the last play of the game. And they all seemed to be interceptions, blocked field goals, all stuff. And so that season was just special, and so many games in that season special, just because you just got the eerie feeling, for whatever reason, that God was involved, and it was bigger than football, and it was a whole lot more than just we were good coaches and had really good players.
Yeah, that's great. I remember that season. That was a lot of fun to watch you guys do that. And well, Coach Dean, why do you coach? What's your purpose in coaching? What's your why?
Well, I think it was Tony Dungy I heard, say this, or read in a book or something, and it just resonated with me. And it's been, really the big push. And that's that, as a coach, I got the goal, like, every other coach, you want to win, every game, you want to win your conference. And really, it's one of the reasons I got back into, being a head coach, want to have that goal. And I think that's important. I think God wants us to be our best. He wants us to match the talents he gave us with effort. And so I think it is, biblical, to try to be the best and try to win. But that's the goal. It's different. Goal and purpose are different, So the goal of winning a championship, but the purpose of using the game of football as a platform to help young people, be authentic men, which are is biblically driven.
Yeah, right. Well, how would you define an authentic man? If that's the purpose to help do that, what are the indicators that they're becoming authentic men?
Well, I think one big thing is, I read the book Raising a Modern Day Knight, by Robert Lewis, and I thought he had a great point. I think that's, one thing. Matter of fact, it's a part of our core values. It's a part of my two boys, their journey into manhood. We've broken that up into 4 quarters, but and that is that, if you want to help somebody, achieve or be an authentic man, then you got to have a definition of what that is. And that's to, resist passivity, accept responsibility, lead courageously, and work for a greater reward. And so we've fleshed all those things out, to our team, just exactly what those things mean. And I've done the same, with our 2 boys. And I think that's one thing that has to be, in the formula if you're trying to, be intentional about helping somebody on that journey.
Yeah, great. Well, Dean, you've also had a chance to coach a lot of different places and been around a lot of great men. So name a couple of the most influential coaches you've worked with and why they were so influential in your life.
Without a doubt, that's an easy one answer. Two or beyond that would get difficult because there's so many other guys that I think are in a light that's, awesome. But I think above awesome is Jim Grobe. I mean, I think a lot of people realize that, it's just good business. It's right morally to treat every person the same. But Jim Grobe, that's who he is. I mean, he never had to work at it. That's he 100%, believed and was authentic in how he treated every single person. They were valued and they were important, in God's eyes, and they were valued and they were important in Jim Grobe's eyes. And you literally couldn't tell if he was talking to, somebody was homeless or somebody that, worked whatever job they did, or he was talking to the president of the university. I mean, you really couldn't tell when Jim Grobe was talking to him. And he's, without a doubt, the biggest influential coach, in my life.
Yeah, great. Well, Dean, how do you want your relationship with Jesus to practically impact your team there at Murray?
Well, I think that's important. That I think a lot of people are doing a really good job, and commend them, and with what they're doing, and thank goodness that we've got some good Christian coaches, in the business. I just read an article, about Dabo. It probably came about your FCA deal. I think maybe somebody wrote something in regard to that, and I sent it to Dabo and said, "Hey, man, just keep fighting the fight. This is awesome." And I think a lot of guys are doing that, and commend them, and that's awesome. I think a lot of us are doing it, under the, umbrella of character development, leadership training, because that's the world we live in and what we have to do. But I do think that, I lost a player named Joey Kramer when I was at Eastern Kentucky, and that just makes you realize that, it's got to be bigger than that you're helping them academically and you're helping them in football. And I think even beyond, you're helping them, be a good dad and a good neighbor and a good, husband and a good leader in a community. I think that they should see something in you and something in how you're running the program that they want to know, who your creator is, and that you are pointing them to Jesus.
Yeah. Love that. I still remember you telling me about that situation in Eastern and how that impacted you, and really, in a sense, got you refocused to make sure these guys are getting an opportunity to hear about Jesus. I appreciate that about you, Dean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the midst of the hectic college football season, hopefully that's going to happen here this fall. We're all praying that that's going to happen. All right. We hope that the hecticness comes back in a lot of ways, and super busy during the season. So what do you do, Dean, personally, during those times to practically foster your relationship with the community?
That's difficult, and it's a battle. for me, as I'm sure it is for a lot of other guys. And, and I think that's the, standing on the truth is so, important. And I have struggled, because I've reached out to you for prayer. I mean, I have struggled my whole career I know the truth, and but the actual standing on it in those times in the midst of the season, I've never had trouble in the off season, but when you're in season, man, it is just so hard to get your focus, off that scoreboard and onto that team picture. And how I do it, I'm probably not the best to ask. Probably a whole lot of better people, because it's been a struggle for me. I haven't come close to winning that battle. I think one thing is, just like I mentioned, I think you need to reach out to believers and have them praying for you, man. Because I know reaching out to you and you praying for me, that's helped me through some tough spots in some different seasons. I think the other thing is that is easy for me. Probably not for the right reasons, but I usually wake up, I'm old now. So, 33 o'clock, I gotta take a leak, and in football season, I get thinking about things and I can't go back to sleep. So, being up early and getting in the Word is not a problem. The problem is, focusing and really resting, I guess, finding the peace, knowing that that's truth, and being able to stand on that. But I think, get your band of brothers and believers, with you, supporting you is important. Getting up early, reading the Bible, finding a good devotional, being consistent. And then I think, the person that talks to you, most is yourself, so I think that's huge, is to just really be careful, with self-talk, how you're talking to yourself, to make sure that that's rooted in truth.
That's great. Yeah, boy, through those things, fellowship and talking to yourself, so important. And there's a lot of good guys on this call right now, Dean, that I know that have been part of that band of brothers that you've been coaching for years, and been part of that band of brothers to encourage you. I'm looking at a few of them right now. So, what's one of the biggest challenges in your coaching career that you faced as a coach, and how did your relationship with Jesus help you navigate through that?
Yeah, that's probably it. What we just talked about. I probably could, rewind. That's my challenge, is keeping that focus on the team picture and why you're in it. To replace those priorities of the scoreboard and the winning. Not that you're not trying to do that, because you are trying to do that, but to keep that perspective of the priority really is those guys in that team picture, and what you are teaching them by how you are attacking the struggle, which I think it's important to struggle well. I mean, if, we're going to be, it's not going to all be, easy. There's going to be times we are struggling, and kids are, they understand what's going on. I think they can tell, when you're struggling, when you're having a rough day. So I think it's important for them to see you, struggle well, and to reach out to the right things to help you to get through it.
Yeah. All right. Well, you've been coaching for over 30 years, even though you started, all right, over 30 years. All right. First as an assistant, then you're a head coach, then back to an assistant, and now you're a head coach again. So what is it that drew you into wanting to get back and being a head coach again?
Time was one. When I was at UNC Charlotte, year one out, if somebody would have came up to me and said, "Hey, coach, you want to be a head coach again?" I'd probably punch him right in the mouth, and then year two, at Kentucky, hey, coach, you think about being a head coach? No way. And then year three, I started to think about it. I started to think, I'd like to be a head coach again. And, and then year four really got the itch, I think that was one. I think two was just seeing some people out there doing things the right way. Mark Stoops included, just seeing people doing things the right way and thinking, if you go attack this, that's one more, culture created. That's one more team. That's one more group of kids that are, seeing it done the right way, and hopefully you're influencing them and then helping them to go out and, be a good father, be a good husband, all those things. So that was probably the biggest thing, was time, kind of healing those wounds, and then seeing examples of people that kind of encouraged me to, all right, let's go out there and do this thing, one more time.
Yeah. Great. Well, Dean, what's something you wish you knew as a young coach that you know now that you might want to pass on to some young coaches who might be on this call?
Well, I think I knew it, but it's been a real punch in the face, to be, right there next to it. I got our oldest is, just made his college decision. So, all that growing up and going through, raising a modern day Knight and thinking about, packing that suitcase and what you're putting in there, and that's what he's leaving with. And then it's over, he's off, doing his own thing. He's a man, and just really going through that whole process never really bothered me. Actually this past spring, going and visiting colleges, that didn't bother me. As a coach, seeing players, come to the dorm for the first time, and the moms are bawling, and, the dads are even a little teary-eyed and give them the handshake and the man hug and, tap the back. Hey, I got you. He'll be fine. Never bothered me, but now, end of April, when Trey made that decision where he was going, now that bothered me. That was, had a couple sleepless nights. Matter of fact, got up in the middle of one night and crawled into bed with him. It was just sobbing, holding on to him, thinking about him going. So, I guess I would just emphasize to you that, they're going to grow up, dude, and they're going to be leaving, and you can't freeze them, and, you can't freeze time. And I know all that, but I guess just, when you have those moments when you can say yes, because it goes fast, man. So just, make time for your family. And when you really can say yes, when you can really call that recruit later, when you can really, get home and, watch something on the iPad, or whatever you can do, when you can say yes, when it's in your power, when it's, in your ability, just do it.
Yeah. Great advice, brother. Great advice. All right. I got another football question for you. This fall, September 19th, we're playing at Louisville.
Yeah.
You're up by 5 with 3 seconds to go in the game. They have the ball on your 10-yard line. What are you going to do defensively?
I'll probably run the same blitz I ran against Kentucky that got us beat.
That's when he's referring to when he was at East Kentucky and they were up against Kentucky, kind of that same situation, and they ran a blitz and got beat. But what would you do then, Dean, for against Louisville in that same kind of situation? What would you do?
Well, I mean, if you play it safe and you lose the game, I think you think about that the rest of your life. We blitzed and it's one-on-one, and I really believe if Stanley Apsonon hadn't cut his nails, before the game, he would have knocked that ball down. So as coaches, everybody on this call, you always remember the bad plays. It's so, you can see a kid, it's terrible, but you could see a kid 15 years down the thing, and he might have missed a tackle and somebody scored, and you lost the game. That's the first thing you think of when you see that poor kid. But I think it would have been worse. I mean, I really think I'd have had a hard time if if I'd have played coverage and got beat, rather than going for it, going after it, and getting beat. Doesn't mean we won the game, we still lost the game. But I never felt bad about the decision. I felt bad that for most part that we were so close and didn't finish it, because it's hard to get in those situations at the FCS level, be on the doorstep of beating a Power 5. But I would hope I'm not calling the defense. Dylan's calling the defense. I was actually calling the defense at that time, because some guy on the call right here ended up taking another job at his high school, forced me back in that defensive room. It's his fault. But So I did call that defense, but I would hope that, and I would, encourage him, be aggressive, man. Let's just be aggressive.
That's great. All right. Well, Coach Satterfield knows what's coming here in September 19th then, Racers. Yeah. All right. Well, we got some time here. Wanted to open up for some questions from the guys on the call. So if you got a question for Coach Hood, just unmute your mic and fire away.
Dean, what's happening?
Hey, what's up there, Blankster? How you doing, buddy?
What are your favorite scriptures, buddy? Favorite scriptures?
Favorite scriptures. I think Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord, I think is huge. Because that's really what it comes down to. Like what I was talking about, before with what's standing on the truth. It's a trust issue. And so, Proverbs 3:5 is a big one, to remind you to trust him. And, I think back to that verse, and I think back a lot of times, and it's helped me, with my children. I think we are images of God. God made us in his image. So I think some of the things that, we do and think as dads, really come from God. And as a dad, I remember the kids were little. This is going to be, probably get this out and someone from social services call me, but I remember the kids were little, put them up on, something that was kind of high, not too high, but high enough that was a little bit scary to them, and, want them to jump to me, and I think that's kind of, coming from God, that was huge. I wanted the kids to trust me. I didn't want them to base it on, how they felt. They were up there, and if they leaned, towards me, I'd be like, no. You stand up tall on that and jump to daddy. Daddy's going to catch you, And I go back to that, with the kids and just think about, that's God. A lot of times when I'm struggling, with, the reality of the world and the pressure of winning and all that, I think back to, hey, I just got to trust him no matter what it looks like, feels like, seems like, just like I was asking, my kids to trust. He's asking, his kids to just trust him. He's in control of the situation.
Great question, Coach Blank. Well, what other questions we got?
I have a question, Coach. Being a believer and a head football coach, how do you best, spread your beliefs of your culture through your staff and team?
Well, the staff is easy because if you're afforded this, situation, I was allowed to hire, whoever I wanted to hire. So I actually have a, coaching manual that's got in there about, coaches and player relations. And in there is, 3 words, and they're all defined, model, mentor, and monitor. And, in that I spell out, and I can send that to you, Coach, if you want me to, but I spell out in there, hey, how we are going to be, around our players, how we're going to model to them, how we're going to mentor them, and how when they, are sent out into the world, done with our program, how we're going to monitor those guys. And so in the interview process, that's something that's brought up. And I just say, hey, man, if you're not of this accord, it doesn't matter, what you put up there on that board, X and O wise. This is how we're going to be. So if this isn't you, if you're not good with this, then this isn't the spot for you. So that's easy because you're hand picking your culture there. For the players, it's a little bit more in the fact that you have to be intentional. As a dad, you have to be as intentional because quality time kind of shows up in quantity time. You're out there in the front yard, you're playing catch, and then they ask that big life question, and you're able to, speak life truth into your child. When you got 100 kids or 80 kids or 60 kids or whatever on a team, and you're trying to help, McMahon, you got a little more intentional. And then depending where you are, as far as public school, private school, then, you have those issues. So, we've always done it with, being under the umbrella of character development and, leadership training, which, nobody's against teaching a kid about honesty. Nobody's against teaching a kid about loyalty. Nobody's against teaching a kid about integrity. Nobody's against teaching somebody about how to be a good leader, so that's how we've always attacked it, is that way. The other way is, I think is even more important. It's kind of the baseline even before you get into, what are some of the things you're going to do that you're going to count as your culture. And that's, getting to know your players. They've got to be more than jersey number 25 and jersey number 37, out there. And we've done that every year, with a spring questionnaire. We just made a questionnaire of, almost like you're recruiting them again, asking them, likes and dislikes, and, what's their favorite place to eat in your town? What's your favorite movie, favorite music? And then some deeper questions with, if you won the lottery, what would you do with the money? And, some things like that. And then actually going to their dorm room or their apartment or, whatever as a college coach, and going over that questionnaire, with them just to find out, more about them. So I think getting to know your guys, having a character development, leadership training plan in place. And then I think you have to have some, family traditions. Everybody has family tradition. Every Wednesday we have Mexican night at my house, and every spring break, we go on spring break together. And so we got these traditions, and I think you need to create some traditions within your football family that you do every year, and the guys know that they're coming, because I just think that kind of exudes a family environment when you're doing, family tradition, types of things. So that's a long answer to your question, but hope that hits it.
Hey, Dean. Thanks, Coach. Hey, Dean, can you talk to the guys about your core values? And then I have two stories that I've heard, but I'd like for you to share with the guys. The story about the apple and the seeds.
Okay.
And then story about, you touched a little bit on it, about the questionnaire and the first time that questionnaire came up with the young man that you coached while you were at Wake Forest, and why he played, why he didn't answer the question.
Yeah. Tell it. Just our core values: tell the truth, be a gentleman, love your brother, and without making it too long. And I can send that to you, but we've got that as the core values, those three. But then we flesh all that out to them. All the things about telling the truth. Lies break down trust. If you don't have any trust, you don't have any team. And talk to them about how their most important abilities, dependability. And then being a gentleman, we got that broken into two parts. The gentle part is a quote by John Wooden of what a gentleman is. And then the other part about being a man is that four-pronged part that I talked about Robert Lewis, and then love your brother. We've got that broken down into three parts: accept, protect, and serve. Talking about how important it is to accept differences, amongst their teammates, protecting their brother in word and deed. Everything they do affects, the team, and to serve them. And the biggest way to serve them is, by holding them accountable, So that's the core. What Coach Hass talking about with the apple is that's just a story, an example I've used to the coaches, to make them understand how important it is, to monitor the guys. Our playbook is, model, mentor, monitor our players. And the monitor part is, within our culture, within our program of helping them achieve authentic manhood. Then when that's over, so to speak, we don't want to just, like Trey, I'm not just going to drop him off at college and that be the end of it. Although I feel like whatever he's got packed in that suitcase, man, that's pretty much it. But I'm still there for him as a resource, and we don't want to graduate our guys out of a program. We want to send them out into the world equipped. So that's the first part of the whole Apple thing. The second part is just coaches understanding, their influence, and the fact of, even though it's limited, how powerful that can be. Meaning that, in an apple, when the kids were little, my kids, I used to tell them, we used to play a little game. Hey, how many seeds you think are in that apple? And they'd all make their guess, and then I'd cut open the apple and I'd count the seeds, and usually if you want to make a good guess, usually 6, 7's a good, number. And, it's a finite number. It's a limited number. And that's us as coaches. Depending how many years we coach, depending if we're a head coach or, a coordinator or a position coach, how many kids we actually, have our hands on and have an opportunity to influence. That's that number of seeds that's in that apple, so however many kids that is, but how many apples are in those seeds, that's the motivating part. We may only reach a certain limited number of kids and be able to help them. But, you think about if you take one kid through your influence who, didn't have a dad, and through your influence, now that kid is there for his wife and his children, and he is a great father. That goes on forever, because that goes on to his son and his son and his son. And, how many apples are in those seeds is just a, astronomical number of the influence, that we can have. And what was your other question? I forgot now. Getting too old.
About the young man who got you from Wake Forest that did not answer the question.
Yeah, that was, I think it was the first year I did the question. I just did it as a DB coach at Wake, and there was a young man, was a walk-on, and one of the questions I asked that year was, why do you play football? And he was a walk-on, but he was talented kid, but he was kind of up and down, in his practice. One day he'd be up and he'd be like, wow, okay, I might try to get this kid on punt return team, or, he might be good on kickoff. And the next day he'd be kind of, just lethargic and didn't really seem motivated. And, so anyhow, I put on the questionnaire, why do you play football? And I got his questionnaire and was reading through it. Well, he left that blank, so first thing, you think as a coach, okay, well, no wonder the kid's up and down. He don't even know why he plays football. That's why I got to talk to him about this. This is a problem. So anyhow, I get to his room and we get to that question, and I said, hey, you left this blank. What's the deal? Well, he gets up and he goes to his dresser drawer and he pulls out a letter, and it's from his mom. And his mom had died of cancer. But in that letter, his mom talked about how proud she was of him and how she wanted him to play football. And so he left it blank because he was waiting for me to come to the room and wanted to show me that his mom was his motivation, for playing. And so, I went from coaching a walk-on kid that was up and down to understanding that here's a kid that's struggling, with his mom's death and dealing with it, So it was right then and there. That was the first year I did that, but it was right then and there where I was like, okay, I'm never not doing this with a segment that I'm coaching. And if I'm ever a head coach, everybody's doing this so that, the coaches can understand the kids, understand, who they are and just understand their journey.
Oh, great. Wow. Great. Thanks, Hattie, for helping him give some great nuggets there. Well, guys, we need to wrap up our call here and keep it to we've gone over a little bit. That's okay. This is great stuff. And maybe the best thing to do, Dean, a lot of guys are asking about the handbook and some of the things about some of your culture stuff. It might be easier if it's okay with you. You just send me that stuff and they can reach out to me, and then you don't have to handle all that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Want to get that stuff, I'll have Dean send it to me and I can distribute it from here. Some great stuff. And now you can guys see why I wanted to have Dean on this call. So just before I say bye to Dean, let you guys know next Monday, our next call will be with Zach Hansen. He's the offensive line coach at Tulsa. The next Wednesday, we'll have Jed Stugart, who is the head coach at Lindenwood University. Then we're taking a week off. We're going to take a long weekend for the holiday weekend. But the next Wednesday, we're going to have Turner Gill as our host, as our guest on the Heart of the Coach. So that's what's coming up. Dean, thanks so much, brother, for being on this call, encouraging all of these coaches on here and talking about seeds. There's a lot of seeds that can go out from this call. So thanks for your love for Jesus. Thanks for your love for coaching and your players and for modeling that for us, brother.
All right, Brian. Thank you, buddy.
All right, buddy. You guys have a good day.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dean.
Yes, sir.
Kenny, what's happening, baby? Tony?